All righty. Okay, we're going to call the meeting to order at 3:36 p.m. My name is Lynn Gomez, L-Y-N-N-E. Gomez. I've been in interpreting for 30 plus years. I am certified through RID with several certifications. I currently work at the School for the Deaf here in Baton Rouge as a staff interpreter, and that's me. We'll now ask the committee members to introduce yourselves.
Just call them.
Lynn, would it be helpful if I do a roll call for you?
Sure.
Okay.
I was looking for who's talking because it's like Jasmine's voice just came out of nowhere. Sure. Thank you, Jasmine.
Sure. All right. Committee member Denise Crochet.
You're muted. Denise.
A good thing, yeah. Hi, I'm Denise Crochet. I would sign for myself other than the fact that the squares are too small, and I don't want to interfere with our lovely interpreters' work. I'm an interpreter as well as a professor at Tulane University. I've been interpreting close to 30 years now. I hold NAD and RID certifications, EIPA scores, as well as ASLTA certification to teach American Sign Language. I'm excited to be on this committee, and it's been a long time coming to see this kind of work get done.
Thank you. Committee member Earl Hardin.
Good afternoon. My name is Earl Hardin, H-A-R-D-E-N. Sign name is E on the temple. Just wanted to say hi. It's a privilege to be part of this group. I've been an interpreter now about 17 years, certified through Texas. I now hold BEI Advanced. A lot of experience, but I'm learning more every day. Never feel that I can stop learning. So this is also a learning process, and we really look forward to see what we can do to help improve the standards for interpreters in our state. So it's a pleasure to be here with all of you.
Thank you, Earl. Committee member Melissa Welch.
Hi, I'm Melissa Welch. I'm first and foremost a mother of a deaf son who's now 36. I have been signing for over 30 years, and I have been a sign language interpreter in the educational system for, this is my 29th year. I hold the EIPA, formerly in MCE, because that's what our program did, but we are now working towards moving more towards ASL, and I'm really excited to be a part of this. I'm really excited to see some standards set in Louisiana.
Thank you, Melissa. Committee member Walker Estes. Can everyone see Walker?
Can everyone see me or? Okay, will you voice for me? Okay, hi, I'm Walker Estes. I've been interpreting at the deaf school, working at the deaf school in the high school, interpreting there for many years now, and I teach ASL as well in high school and at the college level, at university level, and I have several contracts as well with deaf interpreters here and tactile interpreters as well, and pro-tactile now. So I'm very excited to be here with you all. Hello.
Thank you, Walker. Committee member Leslie Knowles.
Hi, everybody. My name is Leslie Knowles, Knowles. I am a certified interpreter, have been for lots of years, and I'm thrilled about this committee. I'm so thrilled. And all those names that you mentioned, Jasmine, a lot of those are students. I am the program director for the American Sign Language Interpreting Program at Delgado. And there's, I think, let me get my list. I think there's 6 of our students out there watching. So hopefully they'll learn something. We will have a big discussion tomorrow night for class. Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for your work.
Thank you, Leslie. Committee member Natasha, I cannot pronounce her last name. Can you help me out, Len?
Hey, mommy. Hey, mommy.
A-Money. A-Money.
A-Y-M-A-M-I.
She is absent today. Lynn, do you want to move on to the next agenda item?
Yes. And maybe one thing I should add about myself is I also have an EIPA scorer and was trained as an EIPA rater. So that's probably pertinent to what we're going to be talking about. All right, let's talk about some housekeeping rules. According to open meetings law, any technical difficulties, meaning we are no longer audible and we're no longer visible to the public. If that occurs, we will have to recess the meeting until the problem is resolved. If it cannot be resolved within an hour, the meeting will be adjourned. The meeting will be recorded, which is already occurring. We have ASL interpreters and we have CART services being provided during this meeting. And we're asking that only committee members leave your cameras on, and everyone else, please turn off your cameras. We have an agenda that was presented to us. You all have your copy of the agenda. Walker is moving that we accept the agenda. You have a second? Any seconds? Is there any discussion on the agenda? We have Leslie and Earl both. We'll go with, Earl, did you have your hand up? I think I saw yours first.
I was just moving that I was seconding Walker's recommendation that we accept the agenda.
Okay. Leslie?
This is Leslie Knowles. My sign name is this. There you go. Is there any way we can move the public comments to the end? Since this is our very first meeting, we don't know what we're talking about yet. And that I think would give us a better flow of the meeting itself. So I don't know if I need to make a motion or.
I would ask, are there any public comments that have been submitted?
Not that have been submitted, although you could ask at this, when it gets to that point, if there's anybody that would like to make one. This is Jana speaking, sorry.
This is Lynn. Is there anyone who's observing who is wishing to make any public comment? We do not have any requests as of yet. It may be moot to move it.
This is Jasmine. It looks like there is a hand raised from the virtual room. Lynn, would you like me to recognize Bianca Shaw? Or do you want to recognize Bianca Shaw?
How many people are asking to make public comment?
Right now, I only have one person with their hand raised.
Leslie, would you be okay if we went ahead and heard, just since there's only one?
Yes, that's fine. This is Leslie speaking. Yes, that's fine.
Okay. Any other discussion on the agenda? We have a motion on the floor. I mentioned earlier, this is Lynn. This is my name, son. Yeah. I mentioned earlier to Jana that the future meeting dates, because I know that not everyone can stay until the end time, if we could move the future meeting dates up on the agenda. Would you all be in agreement with that? Do we have to have an amendment to the motion? Mr. Shane Bates is here and is nodding his head yes. Can we just all suggest some changes and then make one amendment that is to incorporate all of this, and he's nodding yes?
Yeah, you can amend and then just at the end, the motion, if that's what the will of the body is, they can say, have the agenda accepted as amended.
Okay.
So, yeah, that'd be easy.
So I'd like to move the future meeting dates section to Roman numeral 5. That'll be the new Roman numeral 5. Are you generally in agreement with moving that on the agenda to the top? Okay. Any other changes that you all would like to make to the agenda? Walker's saying it's good with him too. Okay, seeing no others, is there I have to do an amendment to the original motion, correct, Shane?
Yes.
Okay, do I hear an amendment to change the agenda and move future meeting dates up to the new Roman numeral 5? Does anyone so move?
I
This is
move.
Leslie, I move.
Oh, I'll second it, Melissa Welch.
Melissa seconds. We now vote on the amendment. Is there any discussion on the amendment? I think we probably already had that. Okay, all in favor of the amendment? Okay. We have a majority, I think is unanimous actually. And then now we're back to the main motion, which is to approve the agenda as amended. Any more discussion on that? Seeing none, we'll take a vote. All those in favor of the amended agenda? It looks unanimous. And so it passes. We have the one public comment, and that is, we're at that point on our agenda. I'm not sure who was asking to make the public comment. Somebody remind me, please.
Yes, it's Bianca Shaw.
Bianca Shaw.
Remind them to turn their camera off if it's not a.
Oh, and
committee
if you are not speaking and you are not a committee member, please turn your camera off.
Okay, hello, and this is Bianca. It's signed B with a smile. I've been in the deaf community now for over 30 years. And so I'm really thrilled. I want to carry some of the excitement that some of my fellow interpreters have about this committee. It's something that we know had to come at some point, and so we're excited to see it happening. Also, I did want to let you know that I am a certified interpreter here in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and I have worked in Texas, in Alabama, and in Georgia as well. And Alabama had a stringent, they already had a licensing structure. And so I was volunteering to be a resource for anyone who would like to use me in the mental health, deaf, blind interpreting field specifically as well. So I appreciate you all. I wanted to bring my gratitude and the gratitude of, well, I'd say at least 7 other interpreters that I know of that I work with. So I appreciate you all. Thank you.
We appreciate you too. Thank you. Okay, any other comments from the public? Have any others come in? Jasmine?
I do not, this is Jasmine. I do not see any other hand raised from the virtual room.
Okay. Thank you. We will move to new business. I'm sorry, we're moving to future meeting dates. The thing I asked for. We'll move to that, the new number 5. Let's just kind of generally talk about this for a moment before anybody makes a motion. We're meeting on a Wednesday afternoon at 3:30. Is that generally a good time for you all? Generally, as Denise says.
That's fine. Walker Estes speaking.
You're going to see in a few minutes the timeline that Jasmine is proposing, and it's somewhat aggressive. There's a lot of work to do. We do have a deadline of November 10th when the rules have to be submitted to the group that wants them. And we have an LCD meeting on October 20th. October 20th is the next LCD meeting, which is technically our first deadline. Because whatever we can get done and get to LCD, we are not the body that makes any final decisions. It is LCD. And so we have to make a recommendation to LCD, who will then vote on it and submit it to go out on notice of intent for the new rules to be sent out via notice of intent and to be promulgated. So like I said, it is a pretty aggressive timeline. Would you all want to meet until then, every 2 weeks on Wednesday? I know. I saw smiles get big. This, I will tell you, just because I'm in the throes of the PPM of LRID, and it's just very difficult to do with just a Google Doc and people throwing stuff in because you're not getting group consensus and you're not getting discussion. If we meet only once a month, we are not going to finish the work. So would you all be amenable to every 2 weeks on Wednesdays at 3:30? I have not looked at any of the dates. I'm just throwing out a day of the week.
This is Missy Welch. Do we think we can meet that deadline, meeting every other week?
I don't know.
I was prepared for every week, so that kind of threw me. I mean, I'm just, well, this is a lot of work.
Yeah, it is.
This is a lot of work. That's just my opinion.
I mean, one way to look at it is if we meet every week, for Jenna and Jasmine, they're gonna be drinking a lot of coffee. And technically, we need to have 5 of us here. Is it 5? No, we need to have 4 of us here. We have 7 members. So a simple majority is 4, but I really don't want to do this with just 4 people. Unless that just happened once or twice and we're plugging through stuff and then the next meeting, when more join us, then, you know, they can speak to what was done at the previous meeting. But we can do a little quick poll here. How many want to meet every week on Wednesday at 3:30? We got like maybe an elbow up, not a full hand, just an elbow. Okay, who wants to meet? Who wants to meet every week? We got Melissa and Earl.
Oh, no.
Every week,
Earl
every 2
saying
weeks?
no. Thought it was 2 weeks.
Oh, I'm sorry, take that hand down then. Thank you very much.
Walker Estes speaking. 2 weeks would be preferable.
Okay, Walker votes for 2, Earl votes for 2, Leslie? 2, Denise 2, Melissa 1. In the meantime,
The interpreter speaking, that bag is so much louder on a microphone. Thank
Won't be
you.
this moment. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
She said she apologizes.
Sorry.
It's fine. And I was about to make a joke that, you know, the weeks in between when we don't meet, that's when Melissa's taking care of a lot of stuff for us. Thank you, Melissa. No, so we'll, every 2 weeks, you were looking at the dates for the next, in 2 weeks
The
is,
6th and the 20th.
so September 6th and September 20th.
I'm definitely available on the 20th. The 6th, I might not be able to come here. I might do it on Zoom.
That's fine.
What about October?
The 4th and the 17th. The 18th. The 4th and the 18th.
Okay, including
Free.
today that, I'm sorry?
I'm free.
You're free, okay. So we got a thumbs up on those dates? I think after a couple of meetings and we see what the rate of our progress is, then we might need to throw in a couple of other meetings where maybe we get together, do some work, and then when everyone joins us the next week, you know, everybody can ratify it. And then it's still coming as a recommendation from the whole committee. That sounds good? Okay, do I hear a motion to, for future meetings to be September 6th, September 20, October 4th?
I so move, Walker Estes. Move to approve the 4 dates. 6th, 20th, 4th, and 18th.
Okay, so September 6th, September 20th, October 4th, and October 18th. Yes. At 3:30. And we have a second by Denise. Who's taking minutes? Jasmine. Jasmine's taking minutes. Okay. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll go for a vote. All those in favor of these meeting dates? And we have hands up. I did read somewhere, Jenna, that it's, for open meeting, you can't, it can't be a show of hands. They have to speak it. Is that right? Shane?
I think it is appropriate.
Okay.
Because it's supposed to be audio and visual at all times, so.
Okay, so I'm gonna call your name. I'll do a quick roll call and then just, tell me, yes, if you are in favor of the motion. Melissa?
Yes.
Denise?
Yes.
Earl?
Yes.
Leslie?
Yes.
Walker?
Yes.
And someone will inform Natasha. Oh, Natasha's not available on Wednesdays. Well, we already took the vote and the motion passed, but now I'm gonna ask, is there another day of the week other than Wednesday? I know of a couple of people that it was no, and that's why this first meeting is on a Wednesday. We'll leave it at Wednesday and, we'll see what to do about our 7th committee member. But, I guess our meeting dates at the moment are still going to allow the majority of us to attend. So the motion has carried. We're now on the new number 6, which is new business. And Jana is going to, oh, I do want to mention that a couple of people who are in the room with us, Shane Bates, if you would introduce, let them see you right quick. I know you're going to be speaking in a minute, but just say what your role is.
Hello, my name is Shane Bates. For those that have never met me before, I serve as the Legislative and Policy Lead for the Bureau of Family Health. And I'll be here today to provide some updates on the timeline and provide technical assistance as y'all move through this board and commission public body process.
Thank you, Shane. I also wanted to mention that we have one of the LCD commissioners in the room, Cami Gaspar. If you'd like to wave to the group so they can see you. Usually in these meetings, it's the committee members, or if we were in an LCD meeting, those are the people who would be allowed to speak and discuss motions. My understanding is protocol is that when the governing body that's above you has someone who comes in, and that would be Cami, who is a commissioner, that she is allowed to speak as well. So, okay, we'll move on to number 6, new business. Jana.
Hi, everyone. I almost said good morning. I'm so used to saying good morning in most meetings, but good afternoon. This is Jana Broussard speaking. I'm the interim director for Louisiana Commission for the Deaf. Jasmine, would you go ahead and pull up the first slide of the PowerPoint? Thank you. Give me just 1 second. I do thank you for your patience. This is this hybrid room model meeting model is very new to us. So thank you while we work through some of the adjustments for that. On our end, we can no longer see the group. So if you just give me 1 second. Okay, there you are.
Do you all see my screen?
So first and foremost, again, just thank you so much to committee members. I just want to extend a personal note of gratitude for you for taking the time out of your very busy schedules, especially at the beginning of a school year, which I know so many of you are in either, K through 12 education or higher education. And I just know how busy you all are after 14 years in K through 12 education. I understand the beginning of the school anxiety so well. So thank you for your time and just your attention to these really important matters. I wanted to start a bit with just an overview and help everyone, especially the public who is attending, to understand really why we are here today. So if you recall, back in 2022, LCD did revise our statute, our law, that authorizes the Commission for the Deaf to do certain functions within state government. And within that law, one of the revisions that was made is that the Commission for the Deaf shall establish minimum qualification standards for interpreters working in the state of Louisiana. We then, once we were finished with passing that law, we decided to bring in a consultant who did an interpreter assessment report for the state. I'm hoping this is something that's ringing a bell. It did last for 6 months. That consultant worked with multiple focus groups, survey groups across the state to gather information, to get a better understanding of the state that we're in with our profession within Louisiana. That report then was issued in March of this year, and we've taken, it is, I think, an 87-page report. It has taken quite a bit of time to work through the recommendations that have come out of that report and the data that we've collected. In the meantime, we also, well, let me back up for just a second. The statute that we have requires what's called an administrative code or regulations to be written that helps explain the law. And every program within the state has something similar. So Commission for the Deaf has a law, and then we have this administrative code or rule that then provides additional information about not what we do, but how we do it. And this is where those minimum standards need to go. We chose not to move forward too quickly because we were waiting for this interpreter assessment report first. And in the meantime, the Commission for the Deaf worked on the rules for the Commission for the Deaf program. So we had other rules that we had to draft and get approved, which we've been working on. And actually, I just got an email yesterday that they were approved and published. And that was the administrative code for the Commission for the Deaf's programs in general, not for the interpreter workforce. So we had 2 buckets of work that we had to do since this law was passed. Then we decided, it was time, okay, we're going to start working on the interpreter rules. The top recommendation that came from the interpreter assessment report was that LCD should establish a formal body of professionals to oversee this work. That the current commission board structure doesn't have the right makeup of individuals for qualification purposes to speak to some of this work. The commission staff, obviously, we are not always have the appropriate qualifications and knowledge to make some of these decisions as well. So that top recommendation was that the commission, meaning the staff and the board, would then work to establish a new group of individuals, of professionals to carry this work forward. That will take legislation. Legislation cannot be done until this spring. In the meantime, we still have these rules that we have to create. That's where this ad hoc committee comes in. The commission board members decided to vote and created this ad hoc committee to start getting this work done, while they will also look forward to consider building out a formal body next spring that will have other objectives that they will need to do. While this was going on, Department of Health reached out and said, okay, you still need to get these rules done. And as the ad hoc committee, planning committee, we discussed working on two groups of professionals, education and those working in court settings first, and then allow the rest of the minimum qualifications for every other interpreter working in the state to be left to that formal body when they're created. So this ad hoc committee group has a responsibility to focus solely on interpreters working in education and interpreters working in the court system. So with that being said, now we're here. It's time to get to work. As those of you who are familiar within the profession, you know that those two groups of people already have standards. There already are guidelines for people working in those two environments. And so what this ad hoc committee is going to do is take what is currently there and make decisions based on what, if anything, needs to be revised and or added. What you see up on the screen is just kind of a very large picture of a timeline of what I just described, which was the ad hoc committee's work, and then moving into creating some legislation, and then a formal body starting sometime next year in August. Would you go ahead and go to the next screen, Jasmine, please? One thing I did want to point out is there are certain requirements within the Commission for the Deaf's law that have to be in this rule. All right, so it's not just kind of coming up with what we think should be in there. There are some things that absolutely have to be in there, and that is what is on your screen. And I'll just go through them really briefly. We are supposed to charge reasonable fees for registration, cost of applications, anything like that. There can be a fee associated with that. There should be reciprocity, which means that the ad hoc committee should consider which certifications or qualifications from other states that we as a state should accept. And if you'll give me 1 second, the security calls me from downstairs when new people show up to the meeting. I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
This is Jana. Okay, send someone down, thank you.
We were speaking earlier when Cammie and I came in together that the security is so much tighter here than at the Capitol. Where we were last week. We had to wait for somebody to come downstairs to escort us up here.
This is a very true statement. This is Jana speaking. So excuse me for that interruption. Okay, so reciprocity just means that, the ad hoc committees consider any other certification or qualifications perhaps recognized by another state acceptable to be able to work here. We should have registration conditions and criteria for expiration, whenever certifications expire. There should be an entire process outlined for denying, suspending, or revoking an interpreter's registration with the state. We should have a grievance policy and procedures and the process for disciplining interpreters. So, if someone has a complaint to make against an interpreter, and what would be the kind of results potentially, that needs to be laid out in a very, very clear policy and procedure for transparency and fairness. provide for a deaf or hard of hearing person's right to choose an interpreter to the extent possible and appropriate. It's kind of very high level of you're not going to write in anything that would exclude this ability is what this means. Exempt interpreters of religious services are those interpreting on a voluntary basis. So any rules that are established would not apply to interpreters in those groups. And then there will be some actual administrative registration requirements. You can go ahead and go to the next one. When we move to interpreters working in the court system, the same rules will apply. So I think Jasmine will talk a little bit more soon about that structure, but the idea is that we will focus on education first, make sure all of those components are included, and then we'll move to those working in court systems. So this is just to say that those same rules apply for that group as well. Next slide, please. As Lynn stated earlier, there is a timeline with October 20th being the kind of goal to have a draft completed to be able to submit to the commission board. In addition, one thing that's missing from this slide is this actually goes before BESI as well. The educational interpreter components will go before the BESI board, which also meets in October. I can't remember the date off the top of my head, but this draft will be submitted to both boards at that time. Next slide, please. And then as Jasmine stated earlier, the NOI, the notice of intent, has to be submitted entirely by November 10th. Moving forward, however, this group now can take a deep breath. And once those rules are submitted, then we would ask that you please stick around, but we have a little bit more time, not quite so stringent, that you guys would help to build the framework for the formal body that I mentioned earlier. Basically create some objectives, perhaps discuss what membership should look like and establish, some of the parameters for what that body will be doing in the future. And that would happen towards the end of this year. Next slide, please. So but the legislation that would be required, if the board can find a sponsor for that, it would need to be submitted, I think, by January 1st. Legislative session is, Shane, can you remind me legislation? I don't think that's right. Legislative session, is it January through June?
No, that's not correct.
March through?
Starting March.
So March, it starts in March, but typically you would want to have, legislators like to pre-file bills and stuff like that, try to have that in as early as possible. And then there would be a potential for some rulemaking. The same thing that's happening right now will need to be done for the new body, but this is still a little bit up for discussion about who can help create some of those rules and if the ad hoc committee will continue to work on those. It'll depend on availability and, those types of things. And we can talk about that more a little bit later. Go to the next slide, please. So one thing that I did just want to highlight for a quick second, through the course of these discussions, as all of us who have worked in this environment before, we know that there are challenges. Anytime that you create standards or revise standards, there are always challenges, and those challenges are important and worth discussing. And the work that we do is to attempt the best that we can to minimize the negative impacts that any of these decisions have on the workforce and or on the employers or on the actual, deaf individuals that we serve. Throughout the recommendation report that was created for LCD, there's a 4-phase model of professionalizing a group of individuals. Louisiana is somewhere between phase 1 and phase 2. Phase 1 is called market disorder. There's still issues within our market of trying to formalize and professionalize the interpreters on a large scale. There are very clear recommendations that have come out of how we can reduce those issues and challenges, and how that we can reduce the risk, like I said, and more easily move into the next phase. On your screen right now are a couple of examples, right? We know that pay for interpreters is an issue. We know that it's a constant cycle, right? There's not enough money, there's not enough training, there's not enough people. It goes around and around. So the salary, there are some clear recommendations of how we at LCD can work to reduce some of the challenges and barriers that exist within that particular topic. I'm pointing this out simply because I want to let you all know that we are very, very aware of what those challenges are. And we have very clear recommendations that we are working towards to reduce these issues so that the work that this ad hoc committee does and the rules and the standards that they put forward, that we are able to kind of meet that need at the same time. So I'm sharing it with you again because I do know and recognize that this discussion sometimes causes a bit of fear. You kind of have a mix between some people who are super excited and some that are very, very fearful, and for different reasons. But I do encourage all of you to simply remember what it is you do and why you do it. It is the community, right, that benefits from the work that you do today. It is their access and it is the quality of services for their life that is what we do, right? And at the end, that is who we should be prioritizing and thinking about as we work our way through this. Jasmine, next slide real quick. So salary is a big issue, right? Pay is a huge issue. Supply of ASL interpreters in general. How do we recruit and retain individuals to come into the state or to stay here? We have a lack of educational interpreter programs. We have 1 2-year, and then that's it. Thank you, Delgado, Miss Leslie Knowles. But how can we continue to grow what we do have and also add to what we don't have? And there are a lot of recommendations here. You can find this full report on LCD website. There's also a summary of that report written in English and provided in an ASL video. So feel free to go look at that if you'd like to read more. But again, just wanted to touch on it for a second to let you all know that, yes, we're aware, we are addressing it, we are working towards taking care of these risks and reducing those risks as much as possible. The ad hoc committee group is then responsible for writing this in a meaningful way to help us get to what that goal is for high quality services for our deaf and hard of hearing communities. I can take any questions if this would be a good time to do so from the committee. Before moving, I believe Jasmine, the staff member, or Shane Bates, I think maybe next, but happy to take any questions you may have at this time.
Leslie?
Leslie Knowles, New Orleans, certified. We're so used to doing that for business meetings. I do have a couple of things. On the Create Administrative Code for interpreters in educational settings, one of the exemptions was religious services. Why is that under the code for interpreters in educational settings?
That's a great question. This is Janice speaking. That is actually not just for education, it's for all interpreters. So the law says all of those things, so it just technically applies to interpreters in general. So it was not meant to per se be for education or legal, it just means in general. There is no law, it doesn't say anything in the law specifically about what needs to be required within education. It just says what needs to be required for interpreters as a whole profession.
Okay, and that is going to be, we are going to be discussing all of these things within this committee. Is that the committee's charge?
It is part of it, absolutely. So, minimum qualifications, grievance policy, yes. So Jasmine's going to go over those sections with you really shortly and kind of show how it's going to be broken down that yes, the committee will be informing each one of those plus any others. We are required by law to include those, but that doesn't mean we're limited to those.
Leslie?
This is Leslie again. Let's see. So you said Bessie governs the interpreters in educational settings? Is that who governs those?
Yes, ma'am. So if you think about historically, the standards were created by the Department of Education for educational interpreters years and years ago. The Commission for the Deaf never had any oversight over those within education. Per Act 128 that was passed in 2022, it is now clearly defined that LCD will inform and work in collaboration with Department of Education on those minimum standards. Department of Ed has been great so far. They have been on board with this the whole time, and they actually will be joining your committee meetings very soon to work through some of their side of it. But it's a partnership. So LCD does not have full authority over educational interpreters. However, we by law are to be included kind of in this process. So DOE has agreed that this ad hoc committee will write this for them. What the rules that LCD creates, they will replicate in Bulletin 746 and update that current certification. I'm sorry. I think it's under, Lynn, remind me.
746.
Yeah, I think it is like, so the certification requirements for anyone working in education. So you have all of your related service providers, your teachers, right? They're going to update that section with the work that comes out of this ad hoc committee. So it's actually going to be in two places in state government, if that makes sense. You'll have Louisiana Commission for the Deaf interpreters rules here, and then education, Department of Education is also going to have the same information on their side.
Okay, so to follow up, this is Leslie again, a follow up. So, okay, that's educational interpreters. Now about interpreters working in the court system, who governs those interpreters now?
That
Or
is
does anybody?
that is the Office of Language Access at the Louisiana Supreme Court. That will remain. However, also just exactly the way we did with Department of Ed, is we are now going to be working in partnership with the Office of Language Access to develop or revise their standards. They're actually really excited about it because they have a lot of spoken language interpreters as well. So they're hoping to use our framework to apply to their spoken language interpreters as well.
Well, I'm sure they have things set up too, so we can R&D, rip off and duplicate.
That's right.
The creative, wait a minute, I have to come review my notes. And we are definitely going to be talking about, we'll talk about governance, and the grievance process is huge. Why? My philosophy is we have to have standards, but if nobody can grieve against them, if the standards are not met, then how, to lack of a better word, punitive?
Sure.
Is it going to be? Is that another charge of this committee?
Yes. Yeah, and Jasmine, that talk a little bit more about that. I think that'll help clear it up for you a little bit. Yes, there's quite a few things that don't actually exist yet that you guys are going to be creating. And that'll be one of them.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for your time.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Okay. Shane Bates. Down.
Hello again. 1 second. So again, Shane Bates, Spirit Family Health. I just wanted to add in just a little more information, I guess, around the timeline. And I'm sure there are a number of concerns about the, I guess, timeline feeling a little rushed. So I guess thinking back a little bit to what Jana said, the law came out last session in 2022. As a part of the law, it provided that there should be rules added in the administrative code. So one part was there were rules from the Secretary of the Department of Health, which were to, I guess, govern over what are the program's requirements. And gladly, we can say those rules were published yesterday in the state register. So kudos. Now the work is on all of you, because the second part of the rules were that it states that the commission is supposed to produce rules around interpreter standards. So with that being said, part of why maybe the timeline feels a little rushed is because it seems so soon now that we're in August and we're asking for something to be done in November. But I guess from the perspective of the department, we've had, I guess, the charge to create rules since last June when the legislation was approved, and then of course it went into place as law in August of 2022. So from that standpoint, you know, we're trying to close out all these rules that are kind of outstanding. With that being said, I know y'all have an aggressive timeline. I know y'all will be meeting, it seems like every 2 weeks. Just note though that of course I will be here to provide guidance when needed. I also know, I think she's on the call in Zoom land. Aisha Umagar, who is the legislative coordinator for the Bureau, she will also be here to support and assist. I guess the main thing, of course, is, as Janice said, you know, that the goal is to have the rule, provide something to the board by October. Internally, after that is provided to the board, it would need to come back to us, because then at that point, our staff would need to work with the legal department here at the Department of Health, because they have to finalize and approve the language of the rule to make sure that it meets all, I guess, legal standards. So there is a little internal process that will happen there. And then naturally what we'll do is, once everything looks good, we will submit it to our rulemaking coordinator. The rulemaking coordinator will send that out to the legislative fiscal officer. So what kind of happens is, by the 10th of every month, you have to get any rule drafts or NOIs to the legislative fiscal office. At that point, they take about a month or so to review those rules, and they come back and ask us questions. After that, it then goes to the Office of State Register. So the Office of State Register is the agency responsible for, I guess, reviewing and adding and ensuring any new rule language is added into the administrative code. If they have any questions, they will let us know. They will then send out a notice to say there is this pending rule. It opens it up for public comment. There's a chance that, you know, people can submit written comments. Also, on the final day of the public comment period, we will hold an in-person meeting. Usually our in-person meetings are downstairs. And since it is not behind the security, you don't have as much concern about getting through security. But, you know, there's those opportunities for the public to also comment. After that, if it goes through public comments and there are no issues or no changes, it will then go before one or two oversight committees. Those oversight committees are part of the legislature's oversight and seeing what new rules are coming out, seeing if they have any questions. If they are opposed, they can let us know. If they agree, they pass it on. From there, it goes to the governor. If at that time he or she, depending on who the new governor will be, because we will probably have a new governor by the time it would make it to that point, depending on who or she is, they also have review of the rule, and they can either oppose it based on any reason they see, if they find something not fit in it, or they can approve it and it keeps moving. If there are no issues, the process from beginning to end, say if we're starting in November, it will probably take about 5 to 6 months. So a final rule that is published as state administrative code will probably not come out until spring of 2024. That's just the process, because as you see, there are different timelines and people have a certain amount of time in which they can approve it. So just wanting to let you know that that's kind of the process, how it will look moving forward. Again, I apologize for the rush deadline of November, but we were just trying to move to get all rules or administrative code requirements off of our table as soon as possible. Any questions? Yes, ma'am.
do, Lynn.
That's,
You know Lynn's got a question.
of course. It's fine.
Shane, we had talked before, you had mentioned before that, and maybe I shouldn't say this in the first meeting, but there is the option to request an extension. If we really get up against the deadline and we have not been able to plow through this, there is that option, correct?
So I will say, it is not something we want to depend on or rely on. However, I guess if there is not a
Or just
draft.
calm down their heart rate.
Yes, calm down your heart rate. So I will say this, if there is not a draft, there will be questions from, the Secretary's office, and our legislative and governmental relations team as to why it wasn't met. We would have to provide some justification to say why it was not met. I guess I would caution that the way the law is now set up, there's a distinction between commission and board. And this is a conversation Janet and I have quite frequently. And because it says it is the commission's rules, technically the commission is now interpreted as the program within LDH, and the board is separate. So there could just be extra push on that side, on the program to put something out from the secretary.
Yeah.
Yes,
Well,
so,
certainly we would have work done. There might be like a section that's not done or something. If we ran up against that.
yeah, I think it's just, again, just working to meet it. I wouldn't fall on that as let's just not do something because we have that as an option. But I think it's one of those things, definitely try to work to meet the deadline. If we're seeing that we're not going to meet the deadline, it's better for us to say in advance and let them know why. Again, there could be questions, there could be pushback, which unfortunately I have no control over, neither does Jana. So I just know depending on what is the will of the department or the secretary, they could push to get the rule out quicker. Yes.
Any questions for Shane? Leslie?
This is Leslie. Thank you for the information. Earlier, Jana mentioned something about a sponsor for this bill. Does that come in here? Do we already have one? How does that sponsorship work if we're trying to push this through?
So the rule is separate from legislation. So initially, Act 128, that was carried by Senator Hewitt, who is a member of the commission board. I know there is some discussion about in these rules, you're looking to create I guess what would be called a regulatory board to oversee these standards being implemented. With that being said, there would be a proposal for that legislation. You would need to find a sponsor. It is likely that the commission board would probably need to advocate to find a sponsor. And that's kind of what the board did in the past. They reached out. Senator Hewitt said she would carry the Act 128 legislation, and she carried it through. It would be a similar situation, if it's the proposal of the board to say, we are now going to need to create this regulatory group that's going to oversee making sure that all interpreters are in compliance with the standards. There would need to be a draft of legislation. You have to find a sponsor, work with that representative or senator on that and work with them carrying it through. But that will come a little later and be separate from the rule process that you're working on currently.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you, Shane.
2 questions.
Appreciate you.
I forget I'm chair and I'm supposed to be calling on people. I'm just waiting for somebody else to start talking. I have to admit, I'm a little bit on fire. Talk about being in the hot seat, literally. The sun is on us over here. Okay. Next is Jasmine, who will talk about the timeline and working documents.
Yes, thank you, Lynn. I will share my screen. Give me 1 second. Okay, so as Lynn and Jana did mention, there is a timeline, a work plan timeline for us to that we are proposing for the committee to follow. As Lynn did mention, it is a very aggressive timeline where we will be working on different sections, a minimum of 4 sections per week. I will go through each section on the next agenda item, but just to give everyone a high-level overview of what the timeline and what the next 2 months will look like. Everything will be documented on this timeline. Again, we'll be working on educational interpreters first, and then we will move on to the court interpreters. So the ad hoc committee will review and provide comments via email or on the Google Drive for the following sections every week. And there will be different sections every week that the committee will be working on. In conjunction, the policy team will also begin drafting some of the sections as well as we continue to work and finalize some of the rules. The policy team will go back in and start drafting some of the sections. So again, we will be working every week on at a minimum of 4 sections. There's also some tentative dates that I will now update now that we have our bi-weekly meeting scheduled. Again, there will be time for the Department of Ed and the Supreme Court representative will be able to join our meetings. Does anyone have any questions with the timeline?
And this is Janice speaking, if I may. So we will update this with the new dates from the meetings that you guys just voted upon, and we can send out a new one.
Yes, thank you, Jana. Okay. Okay. That's all I have for you, Lynn, for this agenda item.
What about working documents?
Yes, let me continue. Let me go back to my screen share. Well, before I move to the working documents, can I show the template of the sections before I go into the working documents?
Certainly. That's the next item on the agenda. And so
Okay.
if you switch back and forth, that's fine.
Okay, so I will proceed on to the next agenda item, which is the review of the proposed sections. Does everyone still see my screen? I'm still using the same screen. Does it say under LCD Title 67, Chapter 13? Yes. Okay, great. So this is a proposed template that we've kind of put together where, as Jenna mentioned, there's already a chapter and title already existing. And this is just an extension of what we are looking to do. And these are the sections that you'll see in the timeline. We're hoping to have educational interpreters, so all related educational interpreters rules going from definitions, provisional standards, acceptance. All of these sections will have its own heading. So educational interpreters will have its own. Court interpreters will have their own section. And then once we have the formal body, then we'll continue on with the other standards if needed. So there are 16 sections that we are looking at. We have the definitions. Again, there are some of these rules that are already in existence, and you'll see on the working document when I do get there that you'll see some of the rules that are in existence. Some of these sections do not have anything listed there. So we're going to go through the different rules, jurisdictions, define some of the minimum standards, qualifications, as well as the registration process. Section 4 talks about the application for provisional certificate. Section 5 talks about the application for auxiliary certificate. Section 6 will talk about the acceptance certificates, and this is the reciprocity of other states. Do we accept other state license certificates, certifications, and what would that look like? Renewal process, registration fees, and what would that look like? Section 9 will continue on talking about the continuing education requirements, as far as the credit hours or the contact hours, and what type of topics. Again, that's something that that the committee will work through. Proficiency levels, supervision of performance, the grievance policy and compliance, repeal, denial, suspending registration, as well as Section 15, the standards of professional conduct, and then Section 16, any exemptions. So again, educational interpreters will have its own sections with all 16 sections. Court interpreters will have the same exact layout and template with their unique standards for each section. Does anyone have any questions before I move on to the working documents? Okay, seeing none, I will move on to the working document. So I do only have the educational section pulled up. So this will be the working document that the ad hoc committee will be working through. It is laid out where you'll see again, it has all of the 16 sections, and it is laid out with the table with current rule, whatever is current that is already in existence into the code is already on this current table, in this current line. And these are some proposed changes. Janet and I have been researching other states just to see kind of what other states are doing and what their code looks like. These are just examples. This is for the ad hoc committee to now look through these proposed changes and actually define the sections. And so again, we will be working section by section. So if you take a look at the timeline.
This is Walker Estes speaking. The notification on the Zoom screen of who is talking is blocking the interpreter.
Oh, I see that.
I am connected on two of my phone as well as my computer. So you'll see me, but I will be muted on my one box, but then the other box, you'll see where I am speaking because I do have headphones on.
This is Jana speaking. It just so happens that when you do speak, it says Jasmine Lamar is talking, and it pops up right on top of the interpreter's face, and so you can't see. And that's actually only when Denise was on. But yeah, see, right now it's like it highlighted you, it picked up your voice, right? And so it's showing that you were speaking, and that blocks the interpreter. Can we spotlight Amy Corey, the interpreter, and perhaps see if it actually moves her to a different spot on the screen?
Let's spotlight Elizabeth because we're switching right now. Actually,
Okay, yes, thank you.
okay, we good.
And the interpreters are already spotlighted, so if you just switch from gallery to spotlight, it
Would
should
that be
work.
better? So what happened now is the room view is over there. So, okay, I think we're gonna be okay. As long as it's not blocking the interpreter. Sounds good. Okay, thank you.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's good.
All right. So as I was mentioning, the sections will align with the timeline. So the first week, section 3, 4, 5, 6, that is what the admin committee will be reviewing and providing their comments to these different sections. We'll also be assessing any types of risk that may be known. This is the working document for educational interpreters. The exact same template for court interpreters is exactly the same with their existing law that is already in place along with the proposed changes. And it's two completely separate documents. Does anyone have any questions? It looks like Missy has a question from the virtual room.
I'm curious, has the title been changed from educational interpreters to sign language interpreters working in educational settings? Is that the proposed change?
This is something that the ad hoc committee can further discuss if they decide to change any of the title or anything like that. Yeah.
Okay. So it's all the way back to section 1. Okay. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions?
This is Lynn. I have a question. Are we
Yes.
not to review sections 1 and 2? I was just wondering why we're jumping to 3 and not covering 1 and 2.
That is a great question, Lynn. The reason I decided to start with sections 3, 4, 5, and 6, I tried to group them based on the how, and not saying 1 and 2 are not important, but I know there's a heavy discussion around the standards and what the provisional standards look like, as well as the preferred interpreter standards look like for educational. I kind of group them based on how quickly the committee could possibly decide on standards versus a section where there might be heavy discussion. This week, we actually have a week and a half for these 4 sections. So again, the committee may move a little quicker on a few other sections than other sections. I was just trying to just weigh it out as far as what I think will be more heavier discussion than other sections. Again, if you'll like to revise the timeline and would like to modify the sections on what sections you like to start, you can just let me know.
Okay, thank you. Jana?
Hi, this is Jana speaking. I do want to add as well. So it is a bit intentional, like Jasmine said, but yet not necessarily set in stone. It was kind of just, let's just do our best to think, what are the areas that may take heavy discussion versus some things that'll probably move pretty quickly. I do want to say something specific, though, about section 1. Definitions are anything that's relevant to that chapter, and you're probably not going to know all the definitions until the sections are finished, right? So it's going to be at the end. So just very specifically about section 1, you kind of have to have the content before you can write the definitions.
Thank you, Jana. Yes.
This is
Any
Lynn.
other questions? Yeah, Lynn?
I was just going to ask the same question. Were there any other questions for Jasmine?
Okay, seeing none. Thank you, everyone.
All right, thank you. I have a suggestion and also a question for Shane on Robert's Rules and Procedure. I would like for us to move into a committee of the whole to discuss this, just because then it allows for discussion to be very free. We go through the whole thing or all of the sections, or attempt to do these sections today that have been proposed. And then at the end, one motion to include everything that we've decided. We'll get group consensus as we go through. Can we do that, move into committee of the whole? Okay. Are y'all in agreement with that? Is there a motion for us to move into committee of the whole? It gives us a lot more flexibility for discussion. Melissa, are you moving? Yes. Melissa is moving. And Leslie seconds. Any discussion on moving into committee of the whole? Seeing none, we'll vote. We'll start with Walker this time. Do you vote in favor?
Yes.
Leslie?
Yes.
Melissa?
Yes.
Denise? Earl?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, we can look at section 3, if you'd like to start there. Have you all had a chance to read the proposal? The proposed changes? Or actually, not proposed changes, it's just the draft and what the current rule is. Everybody's had a chance to look through it for section 3? Okay. Anybody want to make any comments, ask any questions?
Lynn, do you want to maybe read the current rule just for clarity for the public, I guess?
Well, I guess I'll ask the first question then. Jana was suggesting that I read it. My question is the left column that says current rule. Actually, that looks like Bulletin 746 rather than the current LCD rule. And yes.
Yeah, if I may, sure. And you're absolutely right. So I guess, Jasmine, it probably just needs to be called something different. It's the current bulletin surrounding minimum standards for interpreters in education. But yes. So a lot of times we say we're kind of thinking in the same manner, but kind of called it the wrong thing. But yes, there is no current rule under Louisiana Commission for the Deaf Administrative Code for educational interpreters. But there is this standard in Bulletin 746 within the Department of Education. So the question then would be, do we adopt it, revise it, et cetera?
And I'll add to where it is. It's in section 407. In case you get a hankering to look at Bulletin 746, which is, I don't know, like 100 pages. And it's on about page 72, but it's section 407. Okay. The minimum standards, what's in the right column is also what is in Bulletin 746. But remember, whatever's in the right column for us is what we would propose to LCD. Man, that is bright.
Malachi, you want to see if you can move the thing over a little bit?
It's too high.
The sun is like right
Yeah.
there. I mean,
I'd have to put my sunglasses back on
Oh, I see.
so I can see y'all.
You could maybe move here if you need to.
Oh, Walker's saying put the screen. We have an interpreter backdrop. He said put it on a chair.
Oh, there you go.
Oh, yeah. It's so much better.
Maybe
Well,
scoot it up.
as the sun sets a little bit, it'll get a little better.
No, that's worse. We're gonna take care of it. We're gonna get this figured out.
Oh, they've got the stand for the screen.
Hold it for now.
You don't have to keep holding
Oh,
it.
I mean, we can keep rolling.
Okay, I guess it seems a little unwieldy. Do we just jump into all of these? Maybe, I'll just make a general comment here. The State Department of Education, so DOE, currently offers provisional certificates and ancillary certificates. And so what we are looking at and we also need to be thinking about provisional versus permanent or ancillary or whatever title is going to come to. But, we've got to decide if that's what we want to propose as well. And then you will see like these minimum qualifications here for A.
This is Jana, if I may. So yeah, so section 3 is the minimum for the actual ancillary, then section 4 will be the provisional. So right now you're looking at what should be the minimum standard qualifications for an individual to hold an ancillary certificate in the state. What you see on the screen is what it currently is. Does that help?
For ancillary. Okay, Leslie?
This is Leslie. Can you briefly describe ancillary versus provisional and what the difference is? And are we going to talk about certificates or certification?
Missy may want to help answer that question for the difference between the two.
Jana is suggesting Melissa answer. Go ahead.
Sure. The provisional certificate, when we hire an interpreter in the educational system, they have to do the pre-hire. The pre-hire basically gives us thumbs up, thumb sideways, thumbs down. Thumbs up and thumb sideways, we can hire them with a provisional certificate. It's valid for 3 years, but renewable every year of those 3 years.
Melissa,
yes.
tell us what pre-hire means. You go ahead and define that.
Sure. The pre-hire, the EIPA puts out, it's a shorter video. It basically, it's really short, like 20 minutes of receptive, 20 minutes of performance, where the interpreter is, videotaped. We send it off to Boys Town. They grade it. They send it back to us. Used to be really quick. Now it's taking weeks. I just videoed somebody last week, and it's going to be weeks. And so if that candidate comes back with either a thumbs up or a thumb sideways, thumbs up means good to hire. Thumb sideways, they say means needs mentoring, hire with mentoring. Thumbs down, they don't advise you hire. If they come up, like I said, sideways or up, we can hire them. The state of Louisiana will grant them a provisional certificate. It's good for 3 years. Based on that EIPA pre-hire, we do get feedback. It's really not, it doesn't go really deep. It's just a brief kind of like what we need to look for as mentors, what we need to work on, but not at all like the real EIPA evaluation. And it'll tell us even if they're ready to be tested. Usually a thumbs up. The leads, we have 3 leads in Lafayette Parish. We look at it and we can usually either push that person to testing or we work with them. But the provisional allows them to work in the classroom with that testing for those 3 years to gain some experience, because as you all know, where else do they get it? We only have the one training program here. And so as a lead, I can tell you, I tend to look at like extracurriculars, not our core classes. We tend to try to put them there, and they can work for 3 years building their skills. The ancillary is usually the interpreter that's scored a 3.0 or above. I can say I'd like to see it raised to the 3.5. That scares me, like Jana said, and she knows we are 11 positions short in Lafayette right now. So all of this scares me to an extent, except that I know it's past time and coming. So I hope that cleared it up.
Leslie?
This is Leslie. I have a follow-up to that. So it's renewable every 3 years, and then yearly. How long do they have to renew it?
It's renewed for 3 years max. I'm sorry. And renewable renewable every year. In other words, at the end
for
of
a
the first,
maximum of.
yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so section 3 is what is currently the ancillary certificate. And section 4 is the provisional. And maybe we'll just look just at the ancillary part. What do we want to have as standards, minimum standards for interpreters in educational settings? And then when that's set, then we then we address any provisional alternate pathways, whatever it's going to be called at that point. But right now, we'll look at section 3, which is going to be minimum qualifications. Sound good? Denise?
I'm having a little difficulty following on the screen. Jasmine, would you mind, or whoever is in charge of the template, would you mind scrolling down a bit to the top of section 3 where we're looking and see if I'm reading this correctly? Each applicant for approval as an educational language interpreter shall meet one of the following criteria.
Used to be, I think there's more stringent.
Someone has got a microphone on, if you would mind muting yourself.
I just muted that particular individual.
Thank you. I'm sorry, Denise. Can you repeat the end of your question?
Okay. Am I understanding this correctly? Each applicant for approval as an educational sign language interpreter or an interpreter in a educational setting shall meet one of the following criteria. That's problematic in itself because number 4 has a high school diploma and has passed a board of evaluation of interpreter test of English proficiency. So that could be the one that you hold, which gives you absolutely no credential standard of interpreting whatsoever. As well as number 3, hold a high school diploma and pass the written exam of RID. Tells me nothing about your signing skills. So that's a concern for me that it says one of the following.
Denise, this is Lynn. I would say, I don't know if you have this sheet where you can look at it, what she has on the screen. Do you have that?
I mean, I have it in another email, but I was
Okay.
just following what's on the screen.
All right. I just want to mention there is an A and a B. So you see the A, you have to have one of these and then scroll up for the B.
Okay, I didn't see that.
Can you make it larger? Jasmine? Just where it's 125%, 125%, can you make it 150?
Okay, so what are you telling me that it's one from column A and one from column B?
As I understand it.
That's really not worded well.
Right, because it says A shall have one of these, and then B says also shall have. So
Mine
we
doesn't
can
say-
work
oh, yeah.
on.
Each applicant also shall have. Why?
Right, and we
Also
can.
shall have all of those. That doesn't say, it doesn't even say one of those.
I have it doesn't say have one of them? Yeah, shall also
does
have
not.
one of these. Okay,
So there's a problem in the grammar to begin with.
this is Lynn. What I would suggest at this point is let's decide if we're going to have a separate A and B. What do you want in A? What do you want in B? And then we clean up the language for the next meeting.
Okay.
This is Jana also,
It's just
and I just,
confusing.
Yes.
Absolutely. I think, so our policy team is going to help draft this. So I think if we can just highlight that it shouldn't say or it should say or, we certainly, I just don't want you to think you're going to have to go and wordsmith at all. You know, if we can get the spirit of what you're saying, then our policy team will help draft it and you'll be able to see that, you know, just, yeah, for the sake of time, I certainly don't want you guys to have to sit there and write out grammatically correct sentences. But you are making a good point. I do want to add on B. I remember Department of Ed actually asked this question not too long ago of they were reading this and asking for clarification because you see where it says or under between 2 and 3. That was the only thing that helped them know that it wasn't one of the above, like all 3 of them. And so even they were confused. So I just want to let you know, I think I think we can all agree that we need to clean up how it's worded a little bit for sure.
Okay, that being said, can I follow up? That being said, if I'm now reading it correctly and not having one of column A and one of column B.
Yeah, one of each.
Do you mind scrolling down one more time for me, Jasmine? I apologize. To the section A, column A. For me, column A doesn't need to exist at all. Should be all something from column B. That's my 2 cents.
Meaning certification only and no educational requirements?
Well, you can't have the certifications without an educational requirement.
That's exactly. I agree. Totally agree.
What is the educational requirement for EIPA other than the written test?
Mrs. Jan, I don't believe there is one. You can just, is it high school diploma as a minimum? I don't think they even ask for that. That depends on each district's hiring HR department and this. The Boys Town is just a test. They're not, I don't believe that you have to prove that you graduated high school before you can take the test. The state requires that.
It's written and performance and that's it.
Correct.
Okay, then we will have to include something due to the EIPA. Yeah, so one of column A will have to be there to continue with the 3.5 or above on the EIPA.
But the state, when you apply for the certificate, the state requires the high school diploma.
So,
right,
so
and we would,
so it's already there.
You can take the EIPA without it, but when you go into, when you send off your information for the first time, you have to have the minimum of a high school diploma.
So when you submit, this is Jana, when you submit, you know, your application to the Department of Education, you have to have a 3.0 EIP or higher. You have to have passed the written test, so you have to have proof of that. And you're gonna have to show one of the things in column A. A diploma, a college degree, an associate's degree, something.
Correct.
For DOE to issue that state certificate. So that's what we're looking at right now is we collectively are saying, what is the things you're going to have to submit to us? So right now, the minimum is a college, a high school diploma for education purposes, not the professional side of it. Does that make sense?
any other comments or questions about that in particular? So, oh, Leslie?
Okay, this is Leslie, and I know we're not talking verbiage and words, but I've been on this PPM committee with Lynn for a year now, and that's what I'm looking at. So if you go to A and you look at A3 and have passed the written examination, it's actually called the knowledge exam. And do we have to put RID in there? Because if this is law, then if RID, if Castley takes a hold of it or somebody else, can we say knowledge? How did I have it? I had it in my head. Now I can't remember how I had it. National certifying body. Just something we don't have to decide today. I'm just thinking that If RID decides not to do it, we're gonna have to do this whole thing again. And then on A, each
Hang on just a
applicant.
minute. Stay on that point for just a minute, if you don't mind, just so we're not like all over the place. Yeah, the knowledge exam, I understand what you're saying, because administered by RID, it's administered by CASLI, CASLI. But RID is the one who issues certification.
Right.
So yeah, we need another verb in there.
This is Jana, if I can, I just want to share, this is not an opinion, this is something that someone told me at the RID conference recently from RID headquarters within their staff. They actually recommended that we don't name RID specifically and simply say a national certifying body, just in case they ever change their name, in case we ever decide to go, like you said, who now issues that, where it used to be, that was their recommendation, if you would like to take that into consideration as well. They said to just say a national certifying body.
Leslie, I don't know if you have another question, but I was just wondering about maybe backing this out a little bit instead of looking at number 3. Are we in general agreement to do a section A and a section B? Hey, Natasha. This is Natasha Ayamami.
Ayamami.
Son. In. Welcome. It's a good time to be here. So are we in general agreement that we would have a section A and a section B? Yes. We're still going to have a section A and a section B, where A is more of educational requirements and B is more performance requirements.
And that's how those sections should be named. I think. This is Leslie, I'm sorry.
But I just want to know if we're in general agreement to have an A and a B, or whatever it's called. If I can get yeses or thumbs ups, or in agreement to have A and B still. Okay. Now let's look at A as we've decided we want to have an A and a B. So if A is going to be educational requirements, are you all in agreement with number 1 being one of the requirements? Maybe let's look at that.
Yes.
60 semester hours. And it should say a minimum from one or more regionally accredited institutions of higher education. I would like to say have minimally completed. That may not be the correct English for that, but
Have completed a minimum of 60 credit hours.
she is, that's my fellow policymaker. Are we in agreement with that idea?
Yes.
Whether or not the verbiage is right, we're in agreement with number 1?
Yes.
Yeah.
Natasha, I'm sorry, I looked over. I didn't see if there was a thumb or a head.
I'm just trying to
Catch up?
Yes.
Okay.
Go ahead. Yes. Thumbs up.
Okay. Then number 2, as another option, a separate option, it's an or option. It's an or option, because you only have to meet one of these. Number 2, holding an associate's degree issued by originally accredited institution of higher education. Are we in agreement that that should be one of the education, would suffice as one of the educational requirements?
Could it read both? This is Missy. Could it read both associates or bachelors?
This should also say a minimum.
Oh, minimum.
It should say a minimum.
Sorry, holds a minimum of an associate's. Got it.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually.
This is Jana. Can someone help me just understand, and maybe if you guys mentioned this already, forgive me. What's the difference between the 60 semester hours and the associate's degree? Is that just meaning someone did 60 semester credit hours, but actually never got an associate? So you're saying you still completed that level of education?
That many hours.
Got it. Okay, thanks.
Yes.
Because you could have gone to a university.
Right, and just not
And
fifth
After
catcher.
2 years. Not gotten an AA.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Okay, let's, number 2, which is hold a minimum of an associate's degree. Are we in agreement with that being one of the ors in
Yes.
A?
Agreed.
Okay, number 3, this one's probably gonna get a little discussion. A high school diploma or recognized equivalent, which is gonna be GED, and you've passed the knowledge exam issued by, I'm sorry, Leslie, what'd you say? Oh,
I'm
and
sorry,
you passed-
GED or high set?
or high set. Yes, yes. So a high school diploma or equivalent and the knowledge exam offered by RID through Castley.
Is that? Where does it, this is Janice speaking, where does it talk about the EIPA knowledge exam? I thought that's the requirement, not RID knowledge exam. Currently, correct? I just want to make sure, I want to make sure everybody understands what it currently says. And what it currently says is that you have to have passed the written test of the EIPA knowledge, not RID, correct?
Jasmine? Oh, wait, I have it here. Let's see.
Yes.
So I don't know where it actually states that because now I don't know.
Can you repeat the question? I'm sorry.
On number 3, it says pass the RID knowledge exam. We're wondering, does Bulletin 746 actually say the EIPA written? And that's what I'm looking for.
Yeah, I'm trying to pull it up too.
It says educational interpreter assessment written test.
Yes, it does for the qualified educational interpreter certificate, and these are the qualifications to be eligible to receive this certificate. And one does 2A. If you're looking at my screen, it says pass the educational interpreter assessment written test and achieve a 3.0.
So why is this section 5, why does it say it in section 5 but not in section 3? Isn't section 3 the minimum?
Section 3, and we can revise this as needed. Section 3, what is intended to be a general overview of what the qualifications, minimum standards is for educational interpreters, including the registration process. And then it dives a little bit more deeper into section 4 and section 5, which does outline the provisional and what does the provisional educational interpreter standards look like, and then what does for section 5, what does the ancillary qualified preferred interpreter certificate looks like?
This is Lynn. Why would we need a section 5 when what we're focusing on for section 3, that would be the minimum, would also be the qualified?
I actually agree. This is Jana. And this is one of those examples where we don't have to stick to the particular sections if we figure there's a better way to format it. But I do agree. I think it's a little confusing if we have a minimum standard. And look, this example was taken from another state, so maybe they too realized it's a little wonky. But yeah, section 3 kind of feels like if this is the minimum standard, this is the minimum standard, and then you'll have a provisional, kind of your temporary pathway at a different section. Anyway, that's just my opinion.
So let's keep plugging through section 3, and then when we address section 4, and then get to section 5, it may be obsolete based on what has been put into section 3.
Jasmine, if you want to take some of the stuff from section 5, because I think that's relevant though for section 3 that we're talking about. Denise, also, I know Jasmine's busy. I don't know if I can see the chat, but I do see Denise looks like she has to leave.
Yeah.
Denise, yeah, she has
Can
to
I,
leave.
can I just add really quickly, my thoughts, I jotted in there.
Yes.
Back in section 3, if we're making a minimum of 60-hour or an AA, then a high school diploma has no place in that. It's neither of those things. And the addition of a written exam about interpreting does not make it equivalent. That's my 2 thoughts on the section 3. So carry on, good people.
Before you go,
Yes.
any thoughts on section B?
Section B, I'd like to see I'd like to see section B, as you know, as I said before, I would keep just that if it were in my hands only. So I'm good with section B.
At a 3.5?
Yes. For now. I'd rather a 4.0, but I don't think we're going to get there.
Okay. I didn't know if since we're going to that next, I want to make sure we got your thoughts.
Okay, well, 4.0 is my dream. I can live with the 3.5 if I have to.
Okay, thanks, Denise.
Thank y'all.
We'll see you in a couple of weeks.
Yep.
I'm going to do a quick check of comparison between section 3 and section 5 to see if maybe we just want to go to section 5 instead of plugging through 3. Let me do a quick check, or if y'all want to do one as well. Well, section 5 is you have to have a 2 or a 4-year degree, the EIPA written, and a minimum, this says minimum of 3 on the standardized version of EIPA.
Probably needs to be.
I would say maybe let's just keep plugging through 3, section 3. And then, because we'll look at section 3 as if this is the minimum. Thumbs up on that? Sound good? Sound good? Okay. All right. So we were on number 3, which was A3, which was having a high school diploma or equivalent, and having passed the knowledge exam of RID. Keep. Change, remove.
I think we remove the written part of the RID. That's my opinion. If we're going to do the EIPA in education, then either the written exam there, or we just leave section A to just education, and then B be your sign language, which would be the written and the performance. My opinion.
I agree, Melissa.
Yeah, I think, yeah. It's very clear when they're separated. Are we in agreement, let's just break it down then, that a high school diploma rather than 60 hours or an associate's degree is sufficient for the ancillary certificate?
I'm going to speak up again. Okay, now we're talking about ancillary, but having been in the education world for 28 years, and as a lead being 11 short right now, if you remove that, are we not cutting off our hands? I mean, are we not shorting ourselves? I don't know. We're doing minimum. So I don't know. It's up for discussion. What does everybody else think?
Other thoughts on number 3? Leslie?
This is Leslie. I agree with Denise. I think a high school diploma I think you need to have college level interpreters out there. And I know it's maybe cutting off our nose to spite our face, but if we don't take a stand, then we're going to have the same things we have, the same problems we have now. And plus those 2 things in that A3 are 2 separate things. And I agree with Melissa said just a few minutes ago, you need to separate. Education is one, and then credentials, professional credentials are second. And then also real quick, under A, section BA, where it says each applicant for approval as an educational sign language interpreter, that verbiage needs to change to interpreter, whatever it says above it.
Yeah, we'll get all that cleaned up.
Yeah,
This
okay.
is Jana. Can I say something? This is Jana speaking. I do want to remind you, there is an opportunity, in a different section to talk about, maybe an alternate pathway. So, when you are thinking about minimum qualifications, you may want to also have a discussion a little bit later about should there be an alternate pathway? If you have somebody who's been interpreting in education for 25 years, holds all of the above, except does not have a college degree, does that person lose their job? So just something to consider. But there is an opportunity for that to be built out. So keep talking, keep brainstorming, keep thinking about that. Also, another thing, there's been some discussion, just to kind of share with you, that I've seen and heard in quite a few different environments, to change the way that we refer to interpreters working in education, and I think that's why we did write it that way. Not that it has to be changed or whatever, but there has been a little bit of a shift to talk about you were an interpreter first, and then you may work in a medical setting or an educational setting or a legal setting, to give a little bit of kind of a oneness, right, to the profession, and respect that everyone you are an interpreter working in a particular area, field of expertise, or whatever. Educational interpreters, for whatever reason, kind of historically, have always been on an island somewhere all the way over there by themselves, right? Educational interpreters themselves never really felt like part of the larger crew of professions. The larger crew of professions, in a lot of ways, did not really include educational interpreters, and we would like to change that. We would like to see. And sometimes a small shift in just the way that you refer to the individuals could make a difference. And so that's what I think Leslie is referring to. Is not, you guys as a committee can talk about that, but I'm just sharing with you some of the things that we've heard and seen in other states on the national level, and just in different environments, of a small shift in the way that we talk about interpreters and how we call them, that could, potentially improve, that isolation that has kind of always been a part of those working in education.
Earl, and then Walker.
I am not opposed to having the high school diploma or its equivalent left there, because as we've discussed previously, we are talking about minimum requirements. In a sense, it's basically an incentive for somebody. This is the very least. If you don't even have that, don't even bother, because how are you going to help someone else get to this point if you haven't done it yourself? I feel that it's important, at least if they have that as a minimum, it's something to shoot for. It's a goal. But as I've looked over the other options in that same category, as some I've already mentioned, for most of those, you kind of have to already have a diploma or its equivalent to just get into the colleges in the first place. So to have it there, it doesn't hurt, especially if we're going to go a little bit deeper in the next category. So that's just my opinion. If it disappears, in a sense, it's still kind of covered by the other categories, the other points in there, the other prerequisites. But if it's still there, as one mentioned just a moment ago, we have to take a stand somewhere. If you don't have a high school diploma, you haven't even finished school yet, then this is not the place for you. That's my thought on that particular matter.
Thank you. Walker? Where's your interpreter? Oh, he's gone. Oh, he left? Can y'all see him? Maybe you come.
The interpreter, he's very far away and backlit. It's going to be a challenge to interpret remotely.
Yes.
Clearly enough. He's got light coming in from behind him too. That's making it hard.
Let me hold the thing behind you. Just until the other interpreter gets back. He went print something. Is that better? He's a lot closer.
No, it's the light directly behind him.
Where are your feet? I can't see.
I'm good with seeing him, so if it's time to switch, so if we're good, okay, well, that's also helpful.
Yeah, it is time to switch. So thank you, Amy.
No problem. All right, high school diploma is comparable to like kind of a mathematical figure here. Like sometimes it's hard to find math teachers, and so they end up bringing in chemistry teachers, and then they fast track those chemistry teachers to become math teachers. So I kind of feel like if we do something where we pick that high school diploma option, then fast track them to get them to meet those minimum standard requirements, that's just another thought.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, okay.
My only problem with that, and I understand what he's saying, this is Missy, is the whole fast track thing. There's no fast tracking to 60 some extra hours or an associate's or a full bachelor's, whatever. That's years. And then like referencing what Jana said, so the interpreters who have been around for 20 something years, what happens? And I realize there's place later for that. But then I also, in Lafayette Parish, we teach ASL in the schools. And at UL, we have they teach ASL there. So where, I don't know, I'm still struggling with that one, but I guess that's just where I am needing interpreters so badly. That's just, again, my opinion, that it needs to stay.
I'd like to weigh in my opinion too. It's very true. In the interpreting profession, there has been the caste system of generalist interpreting compared to educational interpreters. And we want to change that. I would say that part of the reason is the requirements have been so low to go into educational interpreting. We can still have number 3, but I suggest we move it to provisional and move it out of ancillary, because there is going to be discussion of an alternate pathway, or somebody's going to shoot me for saying the word grandfathering in, because you have to see your fist come up. And maybe we don't use that word, but I understand there's going to have to be some flexibility there. I just don't know that it belongs here for what is going to be quote unquote ancillary certification. If we're wanting to increase pay, if we're wanting to increase respect, if we're wanting to increase the feeling of equality with the other professionals who are on a school campus, we're going to have to get education. We're going to have to get it. So
I totally agree with that, Lynn. I mean, I know it's coming, and I know that's what it's going to be. Pretty much, all educational interpreters will be degreed, and I have no problem with that. I'm just very concerned in the hiring process. If we're going to keep it somewhere else, and then, like I said, with these pathways, I'm okay with that. I think that's then the minimum. If we're talking ancillary, which is where we are, the minimum could be, high school, college courses.
So that's two of us moving it, number 3, out of ancillary, moving it to provisional, and where it'll get discussed again when we get to provisional. How about the rest of you? Moving number 3, the high school diploma, and the knowledge exam, just all of number 3 being moved to provisional, I'm sorry, for right now, out of ancillary for good. All right, so it's 3, that's 4. Earl, 4. Okay, so it's, we have consensus on that. So number 4, which is now the new number 3. Is that the same idea? We want to move that to provisional?
Yes. If that's
Okay.
what we need.
Thumbs up, everybody, on that. Number 4 has now moved. And wasn't there a new number 5? Okay. Oh, what she has in there, what Jasmine has, that minimum, we can take that off because that's gonna go in B.
E,
It's already addressed in B.
right. And the way we want it.
Anything else? We only have 2 options now in the educational requirements. Minimum of 60 hours, semester hours, or an associate's degree. Minimally, those 2. Are we good with those are the only 2 in section A?
Yes.
Okay. Earl's still thinking. Oh, thumbs up. There it was. Okay. All right. So let's move to, this is still ancillary. Maybe change to something else, but right now we're going to call it, that's going to be our working term. Section B. Let's look at number 1. 3.5 or higher on EIPA.
Yes.
Thoughts on that, Leslie?
I would love 4.0.
Yes, in a perfect world.
I think, I'm hoping that's what we're creating. But I,
Well, the
but I
perfect-
understand, believe me, I understand this. I mean, I was a Raider as well as Lynn way back in the day. And that's my 4.0 for me.
And now 5.0 is actually the perfect world.
Right. This is Jana. Can you, Jasmine, pull up that map? I think this is a good spot to just take a glance at that. Remember the map resource? Also, at some point, we need to discuss, it looks like the written test disappeared off of there and it needs to be back on there somewhere, but let's look at this first. This has been put out by the National Association of Education, of Interpreters in Education. So there's that thing again, right? The kind of semantics of how we call each other. This is the current state of the EIPA score in the country. We are only one of 4 states or 5 states that still is at a 3.0. The majority of them are at a 3.5, and there is a big move to a 4.0. The NAIE standards, their goal would be that every state would be at a 4.0. However, they also do recognize that sometimes is a transition process. So don't discredit that opportunity either, which would be perhaps it's a 3.5 now with the intention of it moving to a 4.0 in a certain amount of time. That's an option too. Those in the regulated, no EIPA or unregulated, the first line, those are typically states that probably use the BEI or have their own rating system. So this just means that they don't use the EIPA scoring tool. And then unregulated means they probably don't have any policy in place for interpreters in education. But if you want to go back up or down, whichever, just wanted to kind of give you, put this into perspective for you, that we are that nice little Southern group that just doesn't move too fast, that we're still one of the lowest ratings in the country. But the majority are at a 3.5. That's all.
Okay, this is Lynn. I would, I guess I have 2 thoughts. One is this information on the EIPA, a 3.5 to a 3.9, percent of information interpreted is 60 to 79%. And we really have to think, is that true access to the curriculum and tier 1 curriculum at this point? A 4.0 to a 5.0 is 80% to 100%. And 80%, it's on language first. I don't know if you want to go there and look. 80% is still actually low. So I advocate for a 4.02. I will tell you that if there are a couple of people who mentioned to me, if we did a 3.5 and then we went to a 4.0 and it was a step process, if you open up Bulletin 746, which is like administrative code, or you open up administrative code again, anything in it can be changed. Anything. It is wide open. We could certainly go backwards. So if we, I don't know if this is possible, if we put in as a minimum of 3.5 now with a step that by a certain date, you had to have a 4.0. I don't know if that's possible as an alternate. We have an LCD member who is coming to the table. And she's asking, may I approach, please? And you can stay in that chair if you want to. This is Cami Gaspar.
Hi, sorry, it's Cami. Can you see me okay? Yeah, the interpreter, you're good? Yeah. Okay, so I am a deaf person. I graduated from LSD. I have 2 children. Both of my children are deaf as well. Both of my children my oldest one graduated from public school as a mainstream student. My youngest one is currently in public schools mainstream at this point in time and is a junior at this time. Currently, her interpreter is struggling to keep up and make sure that she can maintain the honors level classes that my youngest child is in. The interpreter is really not able to do her job 100%. My daughter's working extra hard to keep in contact with her teachers for the extra information that she is missing with this interpreter. And I have also continuously reached out to teachers to make sure things are going accordingly and nothing is being overlooked. So in a perfect world where we keep saying that statement, I hear it and understand it. But right now, kids are struggling. My daughter wants to go to college. And if she is struggling with 6%, 60% accessibility with the interpreter she currently has, how can she possibly handle college level classes? So, I 100% advocate that we increase to that 4.0 for this. And that is what the reason why this commission was set up. I understand that Louisiana is, 49th in education throughout the country, but we need to set a standard. And that is the purpose of this committee. And I am not only advocating for my daughter in speaking here, I'm advocating for everybody. I wish that I could do for all, but of course my hands are tied most of the time. And, oftentimes they're not your children. You can't say anything and I have to step back, but I can see that when I'm advocating, I'm not doing that only for my child. I'm doing it for all. And, especially when we talk about these college interpreters as well. And this leads into that as these colleges, hire interpreters at that level too, that's where we need to make sure that we have college equal interpreters as well. So our students have interpreters at a higher level that can make them be successful. Right now, she's in dual with Delgado, and I want to make sure that she's able to have a good, qualified, skilled interpreter who can maintain an all-day effort with her. So thank you. Sorry, I was a little nervous here, but thank you.
Thank you. Earl, did you have your hand up?
Actually, I did for a while. I really enjoyed what Tammy just said. That was very deep, but it also reflects a lot of what's going on around certain areas, at least some of that I'm familiar with. Keeping in mind, if we do move up to 4.0 as the standard, I know there will have to be some time to allow the ones who are there currently interpreting in educational positions to make the necessary adjustments, or finally we start weeding out those who aren't qualified to do so. I think one of the biggest issues we faced thus far is, even though this has been here in the bulletin for how many years, I don't know if it's unilaterally been applied as far as the EIPA scores have been. Have they been sticking to that standard? Have they been checking to see if the interpreters currently working in educational situations have actually met that requirement? Have we been testing regularly enough to see that? Because otherwise, now we've kind of garnered an environment of acceptance. Well, it's all we've got right now. And I know for some, we're scrambling just to find something to fill positions. But I think moving it up would definitely probably weed some out, and it might cause some hardship up front, but as it also says, it will raise the standard in due time. So it might make some tough decisions up front for some, but it will also force them to either adapt or have to move on.
Looked like Walker had his hand up.
Micah is here. Malachi. Am I calling you Micah? Ready? I'm sorry.
So with the breakdown, maybe with elementary, we start with a 3.0, and as you move up to high school, we require a 4.0. I don't know if we can put that in language in the bulletin, or if we just say 4.0 for everybody, right? It was just a thought that we could just have, in high school, you have to have a 4.0, but in elementary, you could maybe have a lower score. Just a thought, an idea.
Missy had her hand up.
Yeah, that's actually backwards though. The language base should be in the elementary. That's where you need your stronger interpreters, because that's where the children's language is being developed. So it's kind of the opposite, actually, but I don't think we should have that. I think it should be across the board. If we go 4.0, it's all.
Leslie?
Hi, this is Leslie. The Boys Town has some videos that show what a 3.0 interpreter looks like, what a 3.5, a 4.5, and a 5.0, what those interpreters look like. So that might be a good resource for us to look at. I'd be happy to share that link. You have to create an account, but it's really easy. Email, that's all they ask for. But it really does set out what supports what Lynn said earlier about how much information is actually there and what is missing. So those videos are really telling, actually.
And I will add that Brenda Schick, who wrote EIPA, and Boys Town, who owns EIPA, recommend a 4.0.
Oh, Missy, you're muted.
Oh,
I'm on board. I say we put 4.0.
for ancillary. Walker saying fine. Natasha and Earl. And we have hands up. All right, group consensus, unanimous. Well, not unanimous. Denise was 3.5. She may have changed her mind based on the conversation though.
No, she said she wanted 4.0, but she was gonna be okay with 3.5.
Okay, so it's unanimous.
Yeah.
Wait, this is Leslie?
Yes,
She
ma'am.
sent me a text going, I want a 4.0.
Okay.
She said, I misspelled 4.0. I said, okay, I'll tell her that. So she is actually at a 4.0 as well.
Okay. I'm so excited. My phone is saying it's raining.
What?
Is it
It is
raining?
not. It looks hot.
It's black over there, y'all. Come on.
Oh, I see it.
We're in a drought. We're excited about rain. All right. That was B1 is 4.0.
Or RID certification. I see Missy nodding. Do we not need to discuss? Do y'all want to just say yes? Oh, wait, we got a hand. Go, Leslie.
This is Leslie. RID certification, do we want to say certification from the National Certifying Body again?
Yeah.
Okay.
Anytime it's RID, just assume it'll be made generic for a national certifying body, because there's only the one that I know of is RID, correct? There's no other national certifying body.
That's correct.
Okay.
Can we also add the written test?
Yeah, I was about to remind that.
4.0 or above plus the written test, maybe even in one.
Yes, that 4.0 is only the performance evaluation. So the
Yes.
written acknowledgement is part of the state requirements at this time. So we will want to keep that, in my opinion. It's actually a pretty good test too.
Yes. And we meant to, we talked about it in section A that we were moving it to be.
Got it.
And we just, yeah. Jasmine, you got that? Good catch. We're in, yeah, still A. I mean, B. Section 3. B.
Section 3B.
1.
1, 2, right?
Number 1 is and.
And, yeah.
And number 2. So that, yeah, number 3 becomes number 2. We'll let her get caught up.
There you go.
Is the written test called the Educational Interpreter Assessment? Is that its formal name? We need its formal name.
Missy says yes.
It is, okay. Is it called EIA, written test?
Yeah, I don't think so.
Yeah. It's the EIPA written assessment.
Okay. It's Educational Interpreter Performance Assessment, written assessment?
No, I think.
Written test, I think.
Written test, correct. The EIPA written test. That's
Okay, you
fine.
can certainly put a note. Yeah, there you go. I'll go look it up.
Okay.
Yeah.
Find the formal name for it.
I'm a proctor. I should know that, but I'm sorry, I don't.
I think it's just, yeah, they're written.
All right. Jana's looking it up right quick, but the idea, the concept of 4.0 and the written test.
Written test.
Is-
So EIPA
it's
written
and.
test. Yeah.
Okay, we're all good with number 1? Or RID, the National Certifying Body. We'll just use RID for right now, but we know it's not going to ever be RID in this document. But RID certification, serving as the performance part. And if you have that, you've also taken a written test.
If I may, just another thing that I was learning about not too long ago. In AIE, for what it's worth, their recommendation is that even somebody who is RID certified should still take that EIPA test, working in education, or at least the knowledge exam, because the work is just quite different than the RID test. So I just wanted to share that with you.
Thoughts on that?
I definitely agree. I've taken both and it's totally different. I think the EIPA in education, the EIPA should be the top. So I'm not sure about the wording there. I'm agreeing with Jana. I don't think they should have number 2 without number 1. So, but you can't say and.
But yeah, we could do and on number 2. If the group wants that, you would have RID certification and the EIPA written test.
Yeah, but isn't that making it mandatory? Like you would have to have both minimum.
That's
Yeah,
that's what she's saying. NAIE recommends.
No, well, no, I guess just to be clear, I don't know how I worded it.
Okay.
They're saying that you can have an EIPA score of a 4.0 and above and pass the written test. That's a standard, okay? If you have an RID certification, that's not enough. You still should be required to take that EIPA and score a 4.0 or above. But it's not saying that EIPA people have to be RID certified. No, it's saying RID. Now, I know that originally it was worded in a way where someone who was RID certified could certainly get a provisional like that, right? They're already certified, get them to work, but they still needed to go take the EIPA test at some point. So anyway, so that's the recommendation. They're just recognizing that the EIPA assessment tool dives so much more into the educational piece of it, of scaffolding and, keywords of finger spelling. You're educating students using sign language, not just translating versus, not just interpreting, versus RID that's a little bit more kind of general for community purposes. And I could find that and send that to you, those standard recommendations if y'all want. It may be in this folder already, I can't remember, but I know that's one of them.
Any other thoughts on that? I have a thought on that.
Yeah, go.
I know, I have thoughts on a lot of things. I understand what you're saying, Jana, that NAIE is in support of RID plus go and take the EIPA. I'm trying to think how to say it. I have taken the EIPA. I was trained as a rater. I've taken RID, several of them, and was trained as a rater. One of the arguments we had before was that like EIPA, I know the MCE section is going to go away, but let's just count it for now because we got people in the state who have it, who are still holding that. And so if you have PSE elementary or you have ASL high school, you still get the same certificate. You still get labeled the same thing. You're certificated at, the ancillary level, which means interpreting is interpreting. And RID is also an interpreting test, and I would venture to say it's a harder test. There's a lot more voicing that is included in that. I've always been okay with an RID certificate. Like if you have only CI, that's not enough. To me, you need CI and CT. You need both, or the NIC. However, I don't have a problem with the written test being added to RID certification because the written test is more about child psychology, educational psychology, educational terms. It's really sets apart what the specialization is rather than the performance part of the test. I see lots of heads nodding. Do people want to add in?
I'm sorry, this is Missy. I meant the written. I didn't mean the performance. If you have the RID performance, that's fine. I think you need to take the EIP written also.
Okay.
I didn't mean the performance. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I wasn't clear with that. Sorry.
All righty. Leslie was nodding her head. I saw Earl nodding his head. Natasha, were you nodding or have a comment?
She might be frozen.
Oh, she looks frozen.
She hadn't
We can't see Natasha. Maybe send in your vote via chat. And then Jasmine, and Walker saying yes. So number 2 is RID certification and EIPA written. Okay.
This is Jasmine. Natasha just sent me a text and said that her electricity went out. So that's why she's having technical issues.
All right. Maybe she's getting rain. It is dark down there. Okay, we're on number 3. BEI basic certification, and BEI's basic certification is for educational interpreting. Or higher, issued by a state that is a licensed user of the BEI system. BEI has 3 levels now. It's basic, advanced, and master. Thoughts on number 3? I'm assuming and EIPA written. I'm assuming that's already a given on number 3, right?
I don't know enough about the BEI. What is a basic? What does that mean?
Well, we have Earl, who has a BEI certification. Oh, wait, did you ask what BEI means?
You mean
No,
what it means
I
in
want to know
general?
what the basic level means. What is that? What does that equivalate? I don't know. What does that mean? I don't know what it means.
Well, if I may, I can explain a little bit about it. Previously, they had the 5 levels. When they first set up the system, it was kind of mirroring what was going on nationally, but local to Texas when they first started it. So I think when they finally consolidated it into just 3 levels now, once again, mirroring what the national level had done, what previously passed for a level 1 and 2, which was what everybody had to take. Even if you had never taken BEI before, even if you had another certification, you still had to take the basic test, which was basically 1 and 2. That's now consolidated into basic. And then I believe 3 and 4 are now advanced, and then 5 is master. So they had their own little rating system about what was appropriate for interpreters at each one of those levels. And the tests are varied to reflect that. They include certain parts of the performance exam that might mirror what you would see in an educational setting. There is a sight translation portion of the test where you have a certain time allocated where you look over a written document and you have to formulate it and then interpret it, just as you would, if you were doing a classroom assignment or a homework assignment or something of that level. But that being said, even with an advanced certification, I was discussing things in anticipation of this meeting, talking with my supervisor here at the Deaf Action Center in Shreveport. And though both of us have our own certifications, we both feel it's a good idea to now go ahead and add the EIPA. I came over to here back to my home state of Louisiana back in 2012, holding BEI certification already, knowing that Louisiana didn't have a agreed upon certification. So I wanted to hold on to what I had. But I think now, because we do assist with some of the local school systems from time to time, primarily in the office and community interpreting, but it's a valuable tool, I think, now seeing that EIPA is a specialized educational test and exam, that we both said it would be a good idea that even though we have other certification, that we want to add that to our repertoire as well. And so I would be in agreement with modifying 3 to say, and the EIPA written, if that, I'm in agreement with that.
Can I ask you a question, Earl? Would you think basic is enough for the education? In other words, if we're upping us to 4.0 on the EIPA, does basic suffice?
That's a good question.
Based on what I've just heard in the discussion that's been going around in the room, my gut tells me it would be iffy, especially in view of the fact that a lot of the educational interpreters work with lower, K through 6 or whatever, or elementary and middle, where they're in their formative years and they're trying to acquire language. I think it would probably need to be a little bit higher than that, in my opinion, after some years of experience.
So I asked Jasmine to pull up the BEI basic definition. Can you make that a little bit larger? And then we'll take a moment to read it.
And now let's read the advanced level.
And education is complex.
That's why there's so many tests.
I move we change it to advanced.
Thoughts, comments on that proposal?
But may I ask a quick question, Earl?
Yes.
Remind me, is it a fact that interpreters who are testing for BEI have to pass the basic first before they can even take the advanced?
That's what I.
So it's not like they're skipping over, correct? So if you did go with advanced, you do know that they have met the minimum of that basic that also includes some of those requirements, right? It's
correct.
building on. Okay, thank you for
You
clarifying.
can't just move into the state and say, oh, well, I want to take the advance because I've already got this and this. Texas does things their own way, and you start off with basic, and
So
then
this is not a rating system. This is the test itself.
yes, you take the TEP first, the test of English proficiency, and then having passed that, and that has given, in my opinion, that test is very valuable for those. That is probably far more important as one going into an educational setting, because basically it's a glorified English test. I happened to have a phone conversation with an interpreter who's been working many years in various settings, just took the TEP last week or 2 weeks ago and was crying by the time she was done. Just because he said, who uses these words? Nobody speaks like this. But my thought has always been, if you don't know the difference in, here, here, and here, or there, and there, I'm sorry, interpreter, use whatever meanings you like. But if you don't understand what they're saying in English, how can you interpret it accurately if you don't know, antonyms, synonyms, and so forth? So that test of English proficiency is no joke. A lot of prospective interpreters who have very good, performance skills and can, sign very well, get hung up on that test, that written. And I think if you can get past that and then go ahead and do the performance, you are definitely qualified for some level of educational work.
So in your opinion, having taken this, do you think the advanced should be used as a minimal or the basic?
Well, I'm thinking of the mindset I had when I was in Texas, and they still have a number of different, in certain schools, they're still using C in certain parts of the state. So, right. And that's even on one of the tests. Right. But it definitely wouldn't be to a disadvantage, but I'm thinking if we're going for minimal, basic, I think if they can get basic, they will be qualified, but depending on what level you're going to be using or what grades you'll be teaching and what subject matter, advanced would definitely be more helpful and more fitted for many more educational environments.
Thanks.
So, Melissa, to tag on to yours, if we did advance, because as you're reading it, it's, it says in more complex settings, and Jana was saying, well, educational is complex, and it is. And remember, it's a general certificate that's going to serve K through 12. The ancillary is K through 12. So when Missy, you had recommended advance for the ancillary, what about moving the basic down into the provisional?
That's exactly what I was thinking. If we're going to do 4.0 EIPA, I think that fits more with the advanced on the BEI. And I think that basic goes to provisional.
All right, I'm seeing Earl nodded, Leslie nodded, Natasha, thumbs up. We can see Natasha moving now, and Walker is a thumbs up. You had frozen on us for a while there, Natasha, a while ago. Okay. So number 3, Jasmine, if you can go back to B3, section 3, B3.
And it would be advanced, BEI advanced. And I think we had said plus the EIPA written, correct?
Do we need to say that for the BEI?
Yeah,
Do they not have a written test?
They have the test of English proficiency, the
Oh, okay.
TEP. It's
Okay, so
not,
that's the same.
it's not, there's no written test for the basic, right, Earl? For the educational part.
Once you've passed the TEP to take the basic for the first time, once you pass the TEP, you don't have to take it again. for
No
any
other,
level.
no
But the
other
te- the
written.
per- Exactly, but the performance tests start to get more complex each level as you go up. So, yeah, the TEP is, once you've passed it, you're done with it.
This is Janice speaking, that's, that is an English-based proficiency exam, not a knowledge of interpreting, which is what the EIPA written and the RID written are. So, my opinion would be that we would stay consistent, and the BEI, that they should also take the EIPA written. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, and I think didn't we already get a thumbs up on number 3, having the EIPA written added in there? I think okay. Anything else you want to add to section B for performance tests? Is there an option 4?
There is no section B4.
No, I'm asking if anybody wants a 4 under B.
I think the way we worded 2, this is Missy, I think the way we worded 2 eliminates the need for a 4.
Mm-hmm. All right, just making sure. I know that these are pretty stringent standards that we're going to recommend to LCD. I think that people who meet these qualifications in both A and B have so much more behind them when they go and ask for more money, when they ask for salary raises. They've got credentials that they can walk in and say, I have this. So.
Lynn, I'm gonna just quick 15-minute check. That's 6:15. Just wanted to kind of let you know.
We kind of came out of the gate doing the hardest one today. I'm thinking that the subsequent sections are gonna move a little faster. Until we get to provisional. I think a provisional is probably gonna, and alternate pathways is going to take a little time too. So maybe give that a lot of thought. Maybe that needs to be our topic next time. Jenna was reminding me we have 15 minutes left, and to honor people's time, we should end on time. Section 4 is the provisional certificate. So, it's actually the next on the agenda. Maybe in 2 weeks, that's what we tackle first during that meeting. Jasmine, can you scroll back down to 3? Section 3. Oh, she's just making a note. Okay. So that's A, and then B, and there's some verbiage underneath B. That's what I'm gonna look at right quick. If we could do that in the 15 minutes. So we could say we were done with 3. Rain is hitting the windows here.
What?
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, that's why my electricity went out.
Yeah, oh, you're getting rain?
Thank the
Oh,
good
yeah,
Lord.
it's poured.
Oh, good.
My grass is so dead.
Same.
Okay, can I ask, what's the June 30th? Are we setting a new due date for these certifications? Is that what the?
This is Janice speaking. So this is actually just verbiage that we found from another state that we were like, you might be interested in how this is worded. But no, that date has not been anything that was agreed upon by anyone. It's just kind of a placeholder as an example.
Okay, well, my only comment to that is, does LCD, if you are gonna be the ones accepting all this, do you want everybody in Louisiana turning it in at the same time?
No. We certainly prefer you not to do that.
That's what I was thinking too.
Yeah, that'd probably need to be kind of a catch somebody at a renewal or, I'm not really sure, but.
Okay.
There may not be enough coffee for that.
No, I didn't.
For everybody all at once.
So this just looks like, I guess it's kind of the same thing, though. I mean, you've got a provisional, which we'll talk about. You've got an ancillary that we just talked about. This, I don't know, let's see. I mean, I guess my question, I do like kind of how it's worded a little bit, but I do wonder what is that difference from a provisional? Now, I guess maybe this is like Missy's issue where she sent off a pre-hire and it's going to be 5 weeks before she gets it back when it's supposed to be 72 hours. Maybe there's a clause in there that says something, that you have an interim approval based on X, Y, and Z, but I'm not really sure. Jasmine, you're the one who pulled that out from something else. Did you have any thoughts about it?
Yeah, this is Jasmine. The reason why I pulled this section, it does give some kind of a transition plan. I know, as far as kind of what if an interpreter has not met this particular criteria, what are some, just providing a date on when it is going into effect. So I do see some value in having this, but how it's worded and kind of what those dates and kind of everything looks like, I don't know. But it is here.
So we could take each paragraph separately because they all are mentioning different things.
Yeah, I think that maybe that section would go in the provisional anyway, just the language of how it's worded. Because it does feel a little confusing.
I'm thinking the same as Jana. It all sounds more provisional to me.
Yes. Okay. So Jasmine, can you just pick that section up and put it in the provisional so that we will consider it? Like copy it or just move it. You don't even need to strike through, just move it.
Okay, it's been moved.
And then to me, under registration guidelines, that first paragraph could be moved to provisional as well. Because it's temporary. Missy, you're muted.
I'm just signing away over here. Yes, I agree. It also sounds, it sounds provisional.
Okay.
It's temporary.
Okay, we move that to, we got thumbs up all around? We move that to provisional?
Because we can revisit that.
Okay.
Too, just to be sure.
The next paragraph, so the second paragraph starts with registrations issued.
I think she moved the whole thing.
Actually, the second paragraph would stay. And the second paragraph actually is probably going to be copied into every section. Alternate pathway, provisional.
Well, and this is Janice speaking.
Ordering.
That whole section, there's a section for expiration, renewals, and all of that. So why don't we just leave Why don't we take that and move it to that section? And in this section, we literally are only saying what the minimum qualification requirement is, nothing else.
I like that. Y'all like that? Thumbs up? Okay, so second paragraph and the third one? Yes, second and third paragraphs get moved to section 7, which is renewals. Section 3.
Woo! That's the hardest one. Kudos.
Section 3. Y'all have anything? We have 9 minutes left, probably 8.5 minutes left. Do y'all have anything to add before we adjourn? Actually, never mind. I need a motion to come out of committee of the whole. I need a motion.
I'll make a motion.
Missy moves. Do we have second? Leslie seconds. We have to do roll call. Walker. Leslie, to approve the motion. Missy?
Yes.
Earl? Yes?
Yes.
And Natasha? Yes. We have moved out of committee of the whole and the motion passes. Now, do I hear a motion that we accept section 3 as follows? And then Jasmine, please just put in there what we just discussed. This section A,
And B.
1, 2, 3, and section B, 1, 2, 3. Do I hear a motion that we accept?
I make a motion. We
That-
accept it.
That's what we propose to LCD. And Missy moves.
Seconded by Walker Estes.
We have a second by Walker. Any discussion on submitting this section as proposed to LCD? Leslie?
Leslie, this was way easier than I thought it was going to be. We are of like minds, and that's why this committee is going to rock. So yes, that's all I want to say.
And I want to say that I think love for deaf children showed it was evident today. We want to be language models for kids. We want to be effective interpreters for kids. We want them to have access to the curriculum. So it's a big day for Louisiana. Well,
It will be.
ours is only a proposal.
It's a
It will
step.
be.
We need LCD to approve it and then promulgate it as the new administrative code. But any other discussion on the motion on the floor? Earl, yes.
Yeah, just want to say it's a big step. Maybe some who are already currently working in these fields will probably literally be shocked. But after so many years of mediocrity, that's probably what we need. We need to move on. And even if it's not accepted exactly as we've proposed it, even if they tweak some of it, it's still going in the right direction. And it's got to be better than what's already been for how many decades. So it feels good to finally affect some change. And it's exciting to see what will happen. A little bit nervous because I know in some areas it will probably mean a mass exodus, but it's cleaning up the system. And you got to sometimes, you have to say you can't make an omelet without breaking some eggs. So we've got to make the changes, and I'm pleased that we were able to do some of that today.
Thank you for that. I'd like to add that we're not unrealistic that people just automatically are going to go take this test and they're going to be there. That there's got to be training that's got to be provided for people to reach this level. And that's in the report that we got from Innovate. And Jana addressed it in the beginning too, that LCD is addressing that.
Yeah, if I may, this is Jana speaking. Yeah, more to come on that later, but we are looking to building a mentoring program. We would focus directly on educational interpreters first. on those that would need that additional support to get to the level that they need. We'll have more information for all of you guys coming soon about that. But certainly that's just one example of many of how we're going to work and partner with Department of Education to approach this, to be able to get the people, the resources, the interpreters, the resources they need to be able to increase their skill. We certainly don't want to lose everybody at the same time. So anyway, more to come on that. If I may, I just want to remind you guys the timeline that Jasmine shared. There are more sections to review, obviously, for this next meeting. And I think your homework would be to go and review those sections and start considering your recommendations for those items so that when we do meet again, hopefully we can kind of just dive right in and you guys can come to a consensus on the next sections, okay?
Yeah, because Shane does not want us to consider the extension. He's over there shaking his head. Don't do it. All right, we have a motion on the floor. Let's take a vote on the motion. All in favor of the motion that this is what's going to be proposed to LCD? Because we had a lot of discussion. I don't think we finished the vote, did we? All right. Earl is a yes. Missy is a yes. Natasha is a yes. Leslie
Yes.
is a yes. And Walker is saying yes. Wait, do they have to say yes out loud? Do they have to speak it? Because it's a show of hands.
Yes.
Let's do it right. Let's go back to who raised their hand. Please let me hear your voice. Earl.
Yes.
Missy.
Yes.
Leslie, we heard your voice. Natasha, I need to hear your voice.
Yes.
Yes. And Walker wasn't,
Yes.
we got his voice too. All righty. Thank y'all so much for this. Thank you for your work. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your commitment to this process and to kids who are deaf in our state, who are relying on interpreters for access. And we're going to swim to our cars here. Probably the backstroke. It's a pretty good rain, y'all.
Send it here. Send it to Lafayette.
Right? We need a motion.
Is there anything else before we adjourn?
Motion adjourned.
This is Leslie. I just want to thank the interpreters.
Yes. Y'all are
That was a lot of
fabulous.
stuff. That was a lot of
Fabulous.
stuff happening, but thank you very much.
Thank y'all.
Yes,
Y'all are,
thank you.
y'all are fabulous. Are y'all coming next time?
We can request.
Yes, y'all were fabulous.
Have you again.
Wonderful to have you again. All righty. Nothing else? We need a motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn.
Every one of y'all. All right, so Leslie moved to adjourn. I think Missy seconded it. Is there any discussion? I got to hear your voices.
You don't have to
Missy.
do that on a motion to adjourn.
All right, give me thumbs up if you're ready to do it.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
See you in a couple of
Thank
weeks.
you. Thank you.
Yeah, let's adjourn.
Adjournment's
All
different.
right. Y'all have fun.
Adjournment is different.
Yeah, you normally just say adjourn as like